It's time for the 1430 Connection on 1430 WNAV and 99.9 FM, spotlighting news, newsmakers, and important community issues. Now, with this week's edition of the 1430 Connection, here is WNAV news anchor Donna Cole.
Welcome to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. In the studio with me again is Queen Anne's County Sheriff Gary Hofmann. We are doing the second of a two-part interview. Welcome again, Sheriff.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here.
All right, so the first part of our interview was about the heroin epidemic, the opioid epidemic. This one is going to focus on guns and school security.
Okay.
To go back to our last interview, one of the questions that came up, including the question that was raised by the woman whose mother died in the accident here on the Western Shore, caused by a man from your jurisdiction that you're well aware of, was why wasn't this guy's license taken away? And one of the things that we talked about in the interview was you guys kept arresting this guy for numerous things, all relating to drugs and driving.
Right. Obviously, we know there's three branches of government, and it's one of those things where, with that being said, we have no control or say over what the Motor Vehicle Administration does, as far as the points that are assessed for his previous violations. And sometimes points do fall off every once in a while. So, every couple of years, points will fall off. So once you get to a certain point, I know they do a revocation or suspension, but I've seen people that I've personally pulled over that will have 10, 12, 14, 15 points, but are still allowed to have a work license where they can actually travel to and from employment.
So you did everything you could. Your office had arrested this guy numerous times for which seemed to be controlled dangerous substances, which may or may not have been heroin, opioids, and driving under the influence of such. You did, multiple times. And it wasn't just your office. It was Maryland State Police. It was Centerville Police because he lived. I
think everybody's met this guy. It's tragic. It literally hits home when something like this, whether it touches a surrounding county and jurisdiction or whether it's, our own county here in Queen Anne's. We talked at length last time about mental health and treatment and substance abuse and things like that. There's a lot of components that need to come together when somebody has this addiction issue. And,
right.
Somewhere along the line, something failed.
Moving on to school security, we keep having the same thing happen. Shootings in schools, mass shootings. I'm going to go back to 2013. And let's keep in mind the community that you are the sheriff in is a very rural community. It's not an urban community.
Correct.
There are a lot of recreational gun users.
There are a lot of sportsmen. There are a lot of hunters. There's a lot of there's two locations in and close to Queen Anne's County that you can actually go skeet shoot and target shoot. There are a lot of firearms within the county.
So in 2013, March 1st, 2013, this was posted, and you were in office then.
I was.
This was posted on the Facebook page. It's a little long, so bear with me. Second Amendment issue. Our sheriff and staff have been receiving multiple requests for his opinion, so we will post it. Coming from a family that has hunted and fished the counties of Maryland, as well as been an avid marksman at an early age, being taught to be a responsible gun owner by competition shooting as a child, my views are in line with our current Second Amendment. I agree with several other Maryland sheriffs when I oppose any law or regulation that infringes or restricts a citizen's right to bear arms under the Second Amendment. The Maryland Sheriff's Association has agreed to work with Governor O'Malley and our local delegation on the following issues regarding gun control and public safety. The following statements are in line with other sheriffs who have expressed the same beliefs as I. 1, closing background loopholes to keep guns out of dangerous hands. 2, working with prosecutors to vigorously prosecute those that commit crimes with firearms. 3, making schools safer by enhancing security and working with school administrators in planning for critical incidents. 4, increasing access to mental health services for at-risk patients. I agree with these common sense points of discussion which identify the real issues associated with gun control that do not infringe on a citizen's right to bear arms under the Second Amendment. Overall, proposed Senate Bill 281 will do nothing to reduce, suppress, or stem the flow of gun crime on the streets of Maryland. These are nothing more than feel-good proposals that do nothing more than impact our law-abiding citizens. For that reason, it is imperative these discussions be had in the House and Senate and not silenced unilaterally by executive orders. My office has been promoting responsible gun ownership since since I took office in 2006 by supplying gun locks and supporting gun safety programs such as hunter safety and training programs for children. I swore a solemn oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Maryland, and I'm prepared to defend my beliefs and oath for the preservation of its traditional interpretation.
Absolutely factual.
Okay.
100%. I think when you really look at the statement that I prepared, and that's 2013,
Right,
so
and
much has changed.
That did pass.
It did.
We have more restrictions on the Second Amendment than many other states. This is in relation to assault weapons.
Correct. You know, one of the things I think we do promote gun safety. We give out gun locks by the bags and boxes. You know, we promote gun safety. We do hunter safety classes in our office very often. And I get a lot of comments from the public on how well those presentations are. Like it says, being a responsible gun owner means that that gun owner also has to take some steps to make sure that they're responsible. And those things do include making sure that firearms are secure within the home. And it is the law. I mean, you know, you have to have them out of reach of children and not accessible to kids. I think it's very important that we also have a process in place, though, where we can address mental health concerns. And again, there's a lot of stuff in our society from 2013 through our current opioid epidemic really depends on one component of mental health. And I think it's important that we enhance mental health. But we should have a system in place where if you've had emergency petitions and you've got mental health issues or a family member files a petition, you should be prohibited from getting that firearm for a short period of time until that can be cleared up. We've seen false accusations before in the past from ex-spouses or disgruntled people or something like that. So I think the mental health component is the huge weighing factor on this issue.
Has any of your philosophy changed in this?
No, it hasn't.
Okay.
It hasn't. You know, I think that there are a lot of responsible gun owners. Mm-hmm. You know, like I said, a lot's changed since 2013. If somebody wants to commit an act of violence against a workplace or against a school, they're going to do that. I think that we saw the other day where someone had actually taken a van. The guy got out with a machete or an axe and attacked a couple of people, and somebody took the axe away, so he got in his van and ran over people. If there's a will, there's a way to do damage and harm to, you know, our fellow community members. It's important that the community, you know, has kind of sometimes blinders on when it comes to seeing things and reporting things. And we have to step out of our comfort zone and make sure that we report something we see or hear. I mean, if we have a disgruntled employee that's at work, everyone might be like, well, you know, that's Bob. Bob's having a bad day. He always acts like that. Well, when day 2, 3, and 4 come and Bob's acting more and more bizarre, Bob's not just having a bad day anymore. Mm-hmm. Somebody needs to intervene. You know, something's going on in Bob's life, hypothetically speaking.
Right.
Sorry to the Bobs that are out there, but
if you see something, say something.
Exactly. We've been saying that, you know,
and for those that did, for instance, with the Florida shooting, with knowing that something was wrong, that did say to even the FBI, something's wrong.
Law enforcement dropped the ball.
Yeah.
It's very clear.
Okay.
I mean, you know, and I'm not afraid to say that. You know, it's one of those things where they did drop the ball. I know in Queen Anne's County, we do emergency petitions all the time. It seems like we do several a week on people. If we start to see people that have multiple emergency petitions, we try to work with our health department or our emergency services to kind of figure out what we can do. We even have a flagging system in place where we'll flag their residents so that we know that first responders, EMS, fire department, or law enforcement know that when they go there, that this person has the potential for some mental health issues.
We're going to take a short break. When we come back, are all weapons created equal? This is Donna Cole on the 1430 Connection, and we will be right back. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. I'm in the studio with Sheriff Gary Hofmann of Queen Anne's County. We're talking about school safety and his belief and many Americans' beliefs that we need not infringe on the Second Amendment at all because of all these incidents with school safety and shootings and mass shootings. And are all weapons created equal? We see these assault rifles used repeatedly with the high-capacity magazines.
Yep. And the bump stocks.
The assault rifles are made for military use. Should they be in civilian, or is there a need for them? Because I've seen now the beginning of what seems a shift in law enforcement and military personnel, some, not all, saying these need not be out there. What are your thoughts?
You know, I think they do need to be regulated, and I can't speculate on what a person's specific need. I mean, I had as a kid a 22 and shot here in Annapolis, 22 competition for a very long period of time,
right.
But just as deadly as another type of weapon. But I think they need to be evaluated, and there are applications where that may be an appropriate firearm for whatever reason, military, law enforcement or something. But I think that it's important that I think we do need to regulate and make sure that who's getting that firearm.
Is that a shift in your philosophy from what it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago?
No, because it comes back to the mental health component. I'm not at all blaming mental health providers and all that. I think that it's something where for a while we had so much funding stripped from us in previous administrations that we are now behind the eight ball in dealing with mental health. And I think that's why we're seeing the surge in the opioid issue. We're seeing the surge in a lot of these cases nationwide. I think it's incumbent upon law enforcement to take every single concern that the public gives seriously, but we're one piece of this puzzle. It takes schools to take and make sure that their school is hardened so that someone doesn't come in to the school. Many times you'll find a school door propped open, you'll find a gym door propped open, and I'm sure this is a nationwide issue, not just in our county.
Right.
Someone will go out a door and it won't set properly back and lock. So I think that the school needs to be a very safe learning environment for all of our students. And these kids do not need to worry about when that door opens who's coming in it.
The schools need to be hardened more than they are.
Absolutely.
It needs to be a safe learning environment, and no parent disagrees with you. But does it get to a point where we're going to start having schools that look like jail? Should it look like that?
No, I think there's a lot of measures that schools can do to still keep a school safe. Making sure the doors are locked, having one entry point for everyone to come into. And whether it's something that you saw in Parkland where they're issuing visitor badges and ID badges for the students, it could still come into the wrong hands. Someone could find it, use it, walk in, but there needs to be checks and balances with making sure that the school takes the step to regulate who's coming into that building. It's important that a lot of people come together on this. Parents need to understand. I mean, I get complaints from parents a lot of times where they'll be like, oh my gosh, I had to go through the front office. I had to sign a visitor's pass. I was doing this. I think we have the understanding now that the schools are doing the right thing by ensuring that they're vetting each visitor that comes into that school.
Just the same way as airports had to change, this is now schools are having to make changes.
We did, sadly, yes. I think it's important that even workplaces look at what they can do to. Your building here is very secure. You can see somebody who comes in the door.
Yep.
They have to push a doorbell to get in. They have to be acknowledged. It's just the times that we're in and things are changing.
What would you like to see even more of? You now have a 5-month-old.
I do.
Who will be going to school in 4.5 years or so.
Yeah.
What would you like to see more of in Queen Anne's County in the schools?
I think that one central entry point for everyone, and then I think the schools can actually take, and I'm not speaking for the schools, I don't know what the cost for them would be to do this, but it's important to me that they do, is some type of monitoring system so they know what doors are propped open, what doors are left unsecured, so that school during the day. One thing a lot of times that happens is the schools are very secure during the day. I know in Queen Anne's County, most of the time everyone is vetted very well going through the schools. But what happens is when school is over and there's a Friday night basketball game, the front doors of the school are wide open. Anyone can come in and watch the basketball game. So it's one of those things where, we're doing a good job, I think, now making sure that our schools are secure during the day. But after 3 o'clock, the building is completely
all rolls
wide open.
off, right?
So if we have these security procedures, we're going to have to implement them or adjust what we do.
And is there a school resource officer at every school?
No, we have one at each high school in Queen Anne's, and then we have 2 roving deputies that actually rove the middle schools and elementary schools in the northern part of the county and the southern part of the county. So I would love to see more school resource officers.
Do you need more personnel? Do you need
Absolutely.
a bigger budget?
We do, but we're looking at there's funding coming down from the governor's office for this. So we're waiting right now to see what funding they're going to provide that will supplement and help us out. But I think that it is needed, and times are changing. But if you have a large school, it could take a normal person 2 to 3 minutes to run across the school. So if you have an incident going on the far side of the school, and the resource officers at the other side of the school, it's going to minimize casualty and loss
Right.
by the officer being there. But
getting from one side to the other is
it's still going to take time.
which is a job that actually I know four-legged police officers might be able to do. And I have heard in law enforcement professionals, including FBI agents, tell me the best deterrent to crime is a dog. So do you see a time in the future with a dog, a canine, a police canine at every school?
Some of the schools already have, some of the officers come to work with, not in Queen Anne's, but will come to work with their drug detection dog.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a patrol dog, and I'm a huge animal lover. I mean, we have 4 canines. We actually have 5, but we've got a canine on each shift. I mean, we're doing a lot of car scans to try to remove the drugs. We're doing a lot of building searches and things like that. But I think a patrol dog would be very difficult to operate. And I'm not a professional canine handler, but I
In
think
a school environment where kids are scared of some...
because you can't just cut the dog loose.
Right.
Because anybody becomes the target for the dog at that point.
All right, let's talk about training exercises as much as you can tell me and how prepared
Sure.
your staff is if something were to go horribly wrong in Queen Anne's County. This is Donna Cole on the 1430 Connection. We will be right back. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. In the studio with me is Sheriff Gary Hofmann from Queen Anne's County. This is the second of a 2-part series, and we're talking about school security. How is your staff prepared to deal with something horrific that might happen in Queen Anne's County? And I don't want it to happen, but I want to know that your staff is prepared because I have a kid in school in Queen Anne's County.
I want to say that we're very ahead of the curve on this because we have been doing tabletop exercises and practicing for the last 6 or 8 years for a critical incident within a school. We've got a very good relationship with the Board of Education, and we have no problem at all practicing in one of the schools. We've done exercises using the schools where we've had deputies, fire department, EMS respond to the school for a critical incident. I think we're very well prepared, and we're very well prepared now because we implemented a new thing where we pretty much have a deputy checking on each individual school all day long during this school year until
Private and public?
That's correct, yes. And we're checking on every single school within the county. It may be a marked car, unmarked car. I had a parent the other day contact me and said, well, I didn't see anybody. Mm-hmm. When I looked, we had an unmarked car there and a plainclothes detective was there. So, we're not going to divulge whether it's a marked car, unmarked car, or whether it's a detective or whether it's a uniformed officer, but there is somebody literally checking on each individual school throughout our county all day long.
Good to hear. And
So-
you're doing some teacher training and personnel training?
We are. We've got our staff actually is doing different types of training. I won't say the specific one, but there are several ones out there, Alert, Alice training, and some other things like that, where we teach the staff how to respond. And I think the staff is actually, really picking up on the fact that, the 3 basic things are run, hide, and fight. So, I think that they've got good evacuation plans in place. So if the threat does come to the school, they'll be able to get away from the threat, hide if they need to hide. But we're teaching everybody to fight. And it goes against, nobody would ever think about this, but I can tell you, if you come into a school in Queen Anne's County and they're going to fight back. And that's what they're being taught to do. And it's a nationwide trend to teach that, to reduce the...
What's your feeling about arming teachers?
I think teachers have a lot to worry about with schools and things like that. My big concern with that is I'm sure there's a lot of credible teachers out there that could easily possess a firearm and could easily use that firearm if they needed to. But what happens when the teacher uses the restroom and accidentally leaves the firearm on the back of the toilet? I think that they've got a lot to worry about now without giving them firearms. But you may have a retired law enforcement officer
Teaching, right.
teaching, who absolutely should carry that firearm.
Bullying. It's a problem that it's always been a problem. It's going to continue being a problem. It seems like it's heightened in recent years, not just in kids, but adults too, because we're so polarized on so many issues and social media. Is bullying the start of an issue in school, and is it being addressed by law enforcement and schools?
Bullying is absolutely, when you look at a lot of the shooters in the past, they had some traumatic event or incidents in their life, whether it was with their family or whether it was with them being bullied, and they came back to the school to retaliate against the school or certain people in the school. Back in the day when I went to school, the bully would kind of walk through the halls and maybe knock your books out of your hand, or you didn't get picked on the field to play football or whatever the case was. Now the challenges are Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, I mean, you name it, they can.
And it's 24 hours a day of
It
bullying,
is.
possibly. Yeah.
We're sitting here, and it's like the phones just continue to cycle through all the different updates while we're sitting here talking, and that's how quick these kids are getting messages and being bullied. And then a lot of times people create fake accounts. The one thing people need to remember is that everything is traceable. When you're using an electronic device, we've had bomb threats by Snapchat, things like that. We've located those people. Everything has a digital trail.
Thank you very much, Sheriff Hofmann, for joining me
I'm
once
honored
again.
to be here. I'm honored to be here.
This is the 1430 Connection. We will see you next week.